Very good morning, children. Today in my geography class, I will be starting with a new topic, the various characteristics of soil. In my previous video, I have given you explanation of the formation of soils as well as different layers of the soil. Today in my video, I will be talking about the different types of soils. So let me talk about the first type of soil, that is the widespread soil of India. This is an important one marker question which usually comes in the board examination. Which is the widespread soil of our country? It is the answer, the alluvial soil. Children, you all know that according to the soil, according to the climate, according to the microorganisms, according to the various kinds of geographical feature, we find that each soil has its own distinctive characteristics which distinguishes one soil from another. It is an important aspect where all these features classifies number one, and number two, it differentiates each soil according to it. In my previous video, I have given you a reference of parent rock along with the soil. As the parent rock, so will be the soil formation of that particular area. Going into detail into the explanation of alluvial soil. Children, just like in USA, we find the prairies of fertile land where we find the maximum crop production of USA. Similarly, in India, we find the fertile soil which is known as the alluvial soil of our country. It is that area where a large proportion of crop cultivation is done in our India. Now, the question arises why the major proportion of crop production is done in this area. There are various factors which attribute to the major proportion of crop cultivation in the northern part of India. The number one important aspect is climate. Climate means that here the climate is moderate as well as the climate is suitable for the production of various cash crops like the maize, rice, sugarcane, wheat, etc. Similarly, the second aspect along with climate is that where we find a good amount of fertile soil. Now the question arises, how come we find only in the northern plain the fertile soil? There is a geographical reason behind it. In my previous video, I told you that how in the Himalayas it is covered with snow. When they are covered with snow perennially throughout the year, when the sun rays fall on them, these snow, they turn and make the formation of the rivers. When these rivers from the mountains slopes down in the formation of the rivers, we find that they settle themselves in the northern plain of our country. When they settle along with water, these areas bring three important content of soil. Now what are these content? These content are along with soil, sand, silt and clay. With this sand, silt and clay in a good proportion, we find that the maximum amount of crop production along with climate is done in these areas. The third important factor which attributes to the crop production in this area is good amount of rainfall. In your previous class, you have learnt in detail that how in the northern area of our country, in the northern part of our country, we find that there is good amount of rainfall which contributes to the maximum major contribution of cash crops or crop production in our country. Children, when we talk about the formation of the alluvial soil, we find that it is basically divided into two major dimensions. The first dimension is role of Himalayan rivers. I told you just now that when the Himalayas are there, these Himalayas, snow-covered areas, take the formation of the rivers. these rivers which originate comes down with 3 proportion of sand, silt and clay in a eroded manner. When these big rocks, when they are coming down, we find that these mountains, they break down. They break down into small particles, settle down in the plain of area in the form of the particles which is the alluvial soil. This northern plain we find is a place where we find these sediments of this large amount of particles which comes eroded in the form of the breaking down of the mountains and finally settling up in the northern part of our country, which is the first dimension of the alluvial soil. The second dimension of the alluvial soil is in the form of the delta. Children, you know basically that when the river originates, all the small water bodies, any water body, maybe it a lake, stream, rivers, they originate and finally they merge up into the larger water bodies, that is the sea in our country. Now, where from the plain areas, when these rivers move forward in a slow area, we find that it branches or it diverts into 2 land masses. Wherever there is a land mass, we find that the flow of the water, it cuts and flow in the form, the water moves ahead. At times, it crosses the various land masses also, which are in the way when they are moving from the mountains to the plain area. When these land masses along with the water, again here they find the moving along with the water, the formation of these sediments in the form of sand, silt and clay. And when these all get deposited in a natural manner in a rectangular place, we find that they take the formation of the delta. You know, you have read in your severe class, junior classes also, that how anything which is a triangular landmass which occurs geographically, that is the formation of the delta. So when we talk about the alluvial soil, we find that they take the formation and they deposit themselves in a triangular shape, which is the delta in this area. As a result, this delta is the origin of the deposits of alluvial which originates from the Himalayan region. Now comes a very important question which comes usually in a 2-mark or a 1-mark question, that where is the alluvial soil found? Or what is the location of alluvial soil? The location of alluvial soil is number 1, Punjab, Haryana, UP, Bihar, Assam and eastern coastal areas. Eastern coastal areas means those areas which are near to the sea in the coastal areas which are found in the eastern part of our country. Here we find that they are found in the Western Ghats also. These rivers which goes down from, talking about the Himalayas, when these rivers merge up from the Western Ghats into the various bigger water bodies, we find they go in the down in the larger water bodies. But the only difference between these Western Ghats is when they go down, they do not form deltas. Rather, the rivers of the Western Ghats form estuaries, which is a unique feature of this particular areas. Talking about the location, the different names which are given to this alluvial soil, we find that this alluvial soil is found in the Piedmont Hills. Piedmont Hills means that at several times along with the bigger mountains in length, we find that they are found in the Piedmont Hills also. There are different names which are given to the foothills of this Piedmont Plains. What are these Piedmont Plains? These Piedmont Plains are those plain areas where we find the clay areas, the particles which are there which gets deposited along with the rivers. as the particles are deposited in these areas, we find that there is a high fertility, or the soil is very high in these particular areas. When we talk about the various Piedmont areas, we find that there are different names which are given in different areas or region. Like Chaos in Punjab, UP we call it Terai, Assam we call it Dwars. These is a different names which are given according to the area wise. Next, we talk about the classification of alluvial soil according to the age formation. This is also an important 3-mark question which usually come in your board examination. The basic difference between the two of them is that the khadar is a new fertile soil. How come it is a new? It is a new fertile soil which comes along with the rivers and gets sedimented. This is an area where we find a large amount of intensive agriculture, because this is a soil which is a recent phenomena, along with the flowing up of the rivers, along with a good proportion of sand, silt and clay particles. It is deposited in one area in that northern part of our India. Along with them, other geographical factors, as I told you, climate, rainfall and a good amount of soil. We find the good amount of crop production in the Khadar region of alluvial soil. Next classification is the old soil. The old soil, which is that it gets deposited in an area. Deposition can be a month, can be few weeks, or it can be years together. Along with the rivers, in one particular area, this soil gets eroded, this soil gets deposited, and along with the new deposition, along with the new rivers, this area gets the soil gets stuck up in that particular area for days together. And this soil is, which is the old age, where the formation is not a recent phenomena, it is an old phenomena. This is known as bhangar. Children, it is very important to know that it is also the fertile soil which comes from the riverbed. When we talk about the riverbed, that riverbed which is near to the river is known as khadar, and that riverbed which is far away from the riverbed, it is known as bhangar. I hope I am quite clear with my explanation. Thank you very much.